All right, folks, we've heard the hype, we've seen the headlines, but did AI actually deliver? I'm now waiting for AI to come up with a way that it can work out for me while I get fit and chill at home. Till that happens, ladies and gentlemen, our next panel is here to unpack just that. Did AI deliver so far? And we have a dream lineup of leaders who've been at the forefront of the AI revolution. First up, Goda Ramkumar, Vice President, Data Science, Swiggy. Round of applause, please. Thank you for being here, Goda. Oh, careful, careful, Goda. Thank you. Dr. Rohini Srivatsa, CTO, Microsoft India and South Asia. Thank you so much for being here. Satinder Pal Singh, Head of Solution Architecture, AWS India and South Asia. And Bridge Singh, co-founder and CEO, Snowmountain AI. What a wonderful panel. Thank you all so much for being here. We're super excited to hear you all. And to guide this conversation, we have our very own tech visionary, Razorpay's Chief Technology Officer, Murali Brahmadesam. Murali, thank you so much. Over to you. Oh, yeah. A quick... I think, yeah, this is too much fun. I think if we play music, we have a great meme. Musical chairs. Who wins? You're the winner, Murali. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's only 30 minutes, so maybe we should just start. So let me start with each one of you can give two answers. One is the surprise that you had and the disappointment you saw with AI in your own space. Then we can derive whether AI delivered or not. Go ahead, Satinder.
So I'll go first. Thanks for the musical chairs. I think the biggest, I'll say, positive thing, the thing that I really liked was level of innovation that AI could bring. It was all about thinking art of possible. I'll give you two specific examples of that. The first one is a digital company like Nykaa. Now, they were doing their catalog enrichment through a manual process. They used our technology along with clip models to automate that process. Now, the thing that used to take days and involved huge human labor has been transformed into using tech and reducing it to minutes. The second example, and this is something that is very close to my heart, is a traditional industry, like a manufacturing industry, a tire manufacturer, like Apollo Tires. And you would think, what is the use case for AI for them? And obviously, there are many, contact center modernization, et cetera. But the thing that really amazed me was they built a tire genealogy solution, which was tracing back the manufacturing process, the products. They created a graph database, which consisted of 275 million edges, 75 million vertices, and used AI to query that. That dramatically transformed their ability to trace back, do RCAs, and identify product issues and correct them. The thing that I think disappointed me was, while there is a lot of innovation that is happening on model, and if you reflect back, Gartner said, I think few months back, that 90% of the proof of concepts fail. If 90% of the proof of concepts fail, then we need to examine why do they fail. Okay. Now, you'll find some dominant patterns there. The one that I have found is the thinking that model is going to solve all the problems. So almost like model is hero or heroine of the story. And so you put in a model, and the model is going to magically solve, ignoring the well-engineered concepts. Okay. Now, whether it is connecting to the data pipelines, finding out the security, privacy, hallucinations, addressing those kind of problems, which is integrating in an enterprise environment, requires engineering efforts. And I think that's something that we need to improve on.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so similar in nature, but I'll keep it more actionable from a startup standpoint. You know, about 2 years back is when I really got back into space. A lot of people might know me as an investor. Last decade I spent as a partner in a VC fund, but my background's in tech. I have patents in enterprise AI back in the day when it was called NLP. And when I tried it about 2 years back, I was blown away, right? Like the stuff that I took years building and perfecting in my first operating avatar was, you could do it in minutes, right? So it was a completely different step function change. And it was such a big deal that I actually quit my job as a VC and became an operator again, right? This was about 1.5 years back. The part that really surprised me though was it was still not very good at quantitative data, right? Like it was, the step function change had happened on qualitative data sets, so semantic analysis and things like that. But especially in the banking and financial services sector, quant data is the bedrock of all decision making, right? So it required a lot of tooling and a lot of engineering and data pipelining to get that right, to the point that we actually quit using LLMs for about 9 months. And we went back to the drawing board to traditional ML and statistical modeling to get that part right. And then as we started to see the newer models becoming better, and we understood the space on what the models were good at, what each model brought to the table, and especially how the agentic architecture could be used to kind of use the different toolkits and models that you have, we went back to the qualitative usage, right? And that's what we're building now. It's a multi-agent architecture for both quant and qualitative analysis for various type of capital asset classes.
Let's go.
Yeah, so I think to answer the question, right, I think one, those who have thought AI just happened 2 years ago will probably ask this question, because AI actually has been happening for quite a long time. Nobody in this room is not using some form of machine learning. Having said that, if we particularly zoom down to what we are calling generative AI, which is the wave that we are on right now, I think there are certain things that are happening today that were not possible, that were actually impossible earlier. I'll give you a couple of examples. So if, one of the startups called PhysicsWala, it's able to manage answers for students, 2 million students who are on the platform on a regular basis, their answers concurrently in a way, at a speed and at an accuracy that was impossible earlier. I think to me, that is just the tip of the iceberg. If you add the language of the fact that this AI today can see, can read, can hear, is multimodal, the kind of things that are possible today was not possible. And you take that to any industry. You take it to healthcare, you take it to education, you take it to financial services. The ability for a user to engage with a machine through voice, through images, through video, in their language, that completely changes the paradigm. So we have not even seen the tip of the iceberg yet. If you ask me, is it not hyped? What is the hype? I would say it's actually not hyped enough. Because there is so much capability, so much is happening in this space, whether you look at multimodality, whether you look at reasoning capabilities, whether you look at the cost at which things are moving in the enterprise, in the space. To me, the biggest opportunity for startups, and I speak with startups all the time, is their ability to adopt this technology and be able to scale their businesses.
Thank you. Goda, please.
I know I am the last one, so all the answers are taken. But one thing I think, not exactly a surprise, but a delight is, like some of the folks here mentioned, you're able to reimagine what you can do much more easily with much less effort, right? Just to give an example, earlier, let's say you had to, even for a simple search, right? If you had to really understand the intent well and be able to respond in milliseconds with a relevant item for the customer, you'd probably have to build 3 different things in the back end to really enable it, right? Now there is one powerful foundational model that can do it all for you, right? So there is, the capability itself is huge in one model, so you can reimagine what you can deliver to the customer. I think not exactly disappointment, but something I wish all of us stressed upon much more is, one is, of course, how do you cross over from POC death valley to really production at scale. There is a lot of work that will go behind it and a lot of first principle thinking also required there, where AI might be at least the hype, which is not enough, but is making it feel all very easy. I think crossing that POC to production valley, we need to focus on much more. And also adding, I think a lot of the new age capabilities in the path of the user comes at still a high cost even as we speak today, right? I think as the inference costs go down, I think that will be able to scale much more.
Thank you.
Can I add a little bit to
Please
what
go
Rohini said? From a startup's perspective, I think what has really worked for us is, like everybody else, we started using Cursor and the various models during the development phase of our deterministic banking ML models, and it really helped in the data engineering aspect. So, if you've done complex data engineering pipelines, there's a lot of analog time between, preparing the data set, having a data analyst verify it, then sending it to the science team, running the models, then going back. And a lot of time is wasted back and forth in that. And the way we look at it now is our ML engineers essentially have a whole data analysis team right next to them, right? Like it's a combination of a data analyst agent and a QA and a business and everything, right? So as a singular ML engineer, you are now an entire team. You're no longer an IC. To the point that with the latest models, O1 Pros, we've actually gone even further. And we think that it's not just tactical stuff that you can do using, let's say, a Cursor or a GitHub Copilot. You're actually building entire modules as a singular ML engineer or a full stack engineer. And what I've started telling my investors is that we're not a 10-member team. We're like a 100-member team. We have 6 people in tech and 4 people on the business. And our productivity output is at the same level as a 100-member team now.
Okay, my CFO will be very happy to hear this. So one thing that we were discussing before coming here was that I shared an incident where there was a table full of numbers that I asked one of the tools to go validate. It was computing lift, so it has to take a couple of values from different columns and compute. And in my head, that cell was wrong. Then I asked it to validate, and it conveniently said, if you divide these numbers, it comes to 37.5, but if you rounded it up, it is 61, so the answer is correct. So, quants, it's not doing well. Let's talk about how to build guardrails so that we can have more confidence in the outputs. So maybe, Goda, you start this time.
I mean, can you elaborate like what exactly?
Meaning, Bridge pointed out that still the quantitative data that are being processed may not be accurate. And I have anecdotal evidence that it's not that good, right?
See, I think of course, it depends a lot on what information you're giving and how much you're putting into the prompt, as well as how are you assisting the model to reason out, right? As a model does not understand numbers. They are ultimately symbols and tokens for the model, right? But I think a lot of, we have built few, for example, automated root cause analysis when a particular metric is moving in a certain direction. And the way we were able to achieve it is not by making the model understand numbers, but it's by making model understand the thought process or what steps you will follow, how you will autocorrect when you're going wrong. It's just like how you're teaching a child in some way, right? So even if a child does not understand numbers, the way you do mistakes, you learn from it, and you kind of auto-correcting yourself. I think that thought process can be very well built into the model.
Yeah, I can add, sorry, I may be jumping at you, but I think it's a very relevant problem. And it goes back to the point that I was making about for POCs to succeed and scale in production, it requires good engineering efforts, not just model. And Goda did talk about how you can build reasoning capabilities on the model. What we have done is we have added capabilities that we call it automated reasoning checks. Okay. How do you know what model is producing is accurate or not, right? Is there a data-driven way that you can get to that prediction? And we've been using automated reasoning as a technology on most of our AWS services. Some of them are not very well known, like network connectivity, VPC connectivity. We used the same check and introduced in Bedrock very recently to see whether models are hallucinating or not, if they're producing incorrect output, and the model will self-correct itself or tell that, look, the automated reasoning check will fail. That points to the well-engineered piece that I was talking about.
Can I add a few more thoughts
please
since we're having this very lively conversation? So 2 or 3 different things. One, actually there are at least three different approaches here. One, that you can give these large language models tools. So for example, Wolfram as a tool, which is a mathematical package, can be provided to the model to say, use this when you see math, okay? And it can do very detailed mathematical analysis. That's one. Because if you just ask the model, you are asking, the wrong question to the wrong person. So you need to have used tools. That's number one. Number two, and this has been there for more than 2 years. Over the years, now you have models. By the way, Phi 3, which is a small language model from Microsoft, it's open source. Microsoft has more than 1,800 models on the platform, which includes all the open source models, including Llama. But Phi 3 is, for example, is a small language model. People are using that kind of model to fine-tune for mathematical and analytical tasks. That's the second approach, using a model that is very targeted to what you're trying to do. The third, which is important, is that even when the model picks up information from your RAG technique or any other way you provide in the prompt, you can provide it guardrails to make sure that it is grounded. So there's a level of groundedness that you can steer the model towards to say that you want it to not hallucinate at all. So at least these three. And finally, if you use agentic, and then give it the tools to be able to prepare something that is very specifically, quantitatively accurate, that then your LLM is able to bring together. So at least these are 3 or 4 different approaches you need to think about to be able to make sure that you are being able to have that full confidence on something quantitative.
This is the way. This is exactly what we're doing.
So Bridge, given that you do it, can you open source some of that?
No.
Okay. I tried.
So we built a reasoning model at the model layer where we do use open source as a base model, and we will contribute to the open source community when we are ready. Today we are not. We don't have enough resources. We've not raised much money. We are not like big tech that has thousands of people.
You just said you have 10x developers, right?
Yeah, but still I need to build my app layers as well and start monetizing. We're still like a seed stage company, right? When I'm ready, when I have the resources, we will.
I think Bridget's point is actually very important because that's what a startup does. You take a general purpose model, but then you bring in your context, your domain, your data and intelligence to build something that is your IP. And that's
IP
what
you don't have to give.
No, point, forget about anything. The point is that is what a platform provider provides the ability to accelerate.
Look, this whole community, this whole discussion around open source is completely backwards, right? People think that, oh, individual companies need to contribute to open source. What? That was not the purpose of open source in the first place. I think actually, I mean, this might be a little bit controversial opinion, but I think big tech has actually taken over open source in a very perverse way. I think companies like Facebook and Meta are doing a great job. I agree. That's a great job that they've open source Llama. But open source was community. When I started coding in 1999, open source was all about individual developers coming together as a community, putting their heart and soul in a product, and then growing it from the grassroots. It was not a top-down process. And we have completely gotten ass backwards on that. So if, this whole debate on why India doesn't have open source or why we don't have this and that is because you just don't do community. You don't collaborate with each other.
I actually agree with you.
Yeah, and
I think the VC community took it over. Just for
Who took it over? The
Yeah.
VC community? Oh my God.
wanted viral
VCs
effect.
are like the favorite punching bag in India, right? And I can tell you, I can assure you, I've been a decade a VC and I've been a decade an operator, right? And probably more than that. VCs are not your punching bag, man. Go and look in yourselves. What innovation have you done? Who has brought any kind of model which is worth its salt globally? Then come to VCs and see if you can do something about it.
Sounds good. So let's we need to give 5 minutes for Q&A. So let's talk about predictions. So let's go around. Satinder, you want to start?
Predictions of?
Predictions for AI, 2025.
Okay. I don't think so that I can really predict. But I'll tell you the things that, when you're thinking about future, there are two models. You can always think about things that are going to change. And that is a legitimate way of thinking. Then you can also think about things that are not going to change. Right? So if you think about, and it's hard for me to predict about things that are going to change, I think, and it's been pretty evident in the field, DeepSeek, et cetera, so I'll not get into that. But let's think about things that are not going to change. The things that are not going to change is, none of us will ever think that the cost of models should go up. The cost of inferencing should always go down. And that's where I'll see, and I think the models are going to get better and better. And I think there was a discussion on type of models. Stanford, after DeepSeek, that didn't get as much attention, S1 model, just introduced a clear technique and a very clever technique of tested time scaling and budget enforcing to get radically different kind of results on reasoning, right? So models are going to become smarter and smarter. The core infrastructure will become smarter and smarter. So I think that's the piece that I think, if you look at cost, is very, very dominant pattern. And we've, on AWS, we've been investing a lot on building purpose-built accelerators for AI, both on the training as well as on inferencing. So I think that's the second thing. The third thing will be ability for generative AI workloads to deliver results for enterprise. The integration, ontology of the data models, I think that's something that I would encourage everyone to think about, because that's going to produce direct results for your generative AI efforts.
Brij, please.
You want me to go next?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, again, this might be a little bit controversial, right? I think researchers and entrepreneurs in India have become too whiny. They are not innovating enough, and they're just expecting handouts from the government or the VCs, right? Because I feel innovation, true innovation, happens at the intersection of constraint and cleverness. So what you've seen at DeepSeek R1 is constraint on compute and cleverness to try RL techniques. What you're seeing in Stanford S1 is constraint on the training data set. It was like 1,000-question, highly curated training data set, and a very clever technique of putting weight tokens at inference time, right? And it's just a very clever architecture. They did on like $50 worth of compute, right? And I think they're just like masters or PhD researchers in Stanford. I've not read the paper in detail. I just read the abstract. That's the kind of work that people need to get to. They need to get out of their mindset of cheap and easy SaaS applications and India scale consumer apps and all of that. If you really want to build something in AI, go read some papers and then see what clever architectures you can build out of it.
Dr. Rohini.
+1 to that, because I think the point I'm trying to make in terms of +1, let me elaborate. I think the mental model has been very seriously challenged. And I think there is an opportunity for India to really think differently in terms of what AI means for your businesses. That could be at the model layer, that could be at any part of the stack. Prediction for 2025, I think we're going to see a very serious upswing of adoption, because people will realize that this technology is going to keep changing. You have to understand where you will play in this and move fast, because the risk of falling behind is growing exponentially higher.
I think at least the prediction for 2025, there are 3 parts, right? I think over the last 2 years, like we were saying, it was a lot of POC phase. We had a lot of proof of concepts. I think this year will be more about, we'll see which ones make it to production at scale use cases. The second thing I think is there will be some level of innovation and reimagining of experiences for the end customer. Now that people feel they have access to these kind of tools, we'll have one. It need not come from any specific function, right? You need not be a specific engineer or product or data science. I think innovation will come from all directions because it has enabled you, so it will reimagine what you can deliver to the customer. And the third bit, I think people will try to settle and find their moat. I think right now, everyone is wandering a bit in terms of where does the moat lie? Is it in my data? Is it in my codifying of domain knowledge? Is it in the engineering aspect of building the bare bones required to make it happen? Or is it more in the how innovative your application layer is? I think people will settle to find their individual moats.
Thank you very much.
Can I add a little bit on that one? Yeah.
You have 50 seconds.
Yeah. So I think while we're really good at the app layer SaaS, I think we should figure out how to orchestrate the model layer to enable that, right? So the moat will be in the architecture that you build to deliver the final outcome, right? For whatever sector or whatever thing you're operating in, whether it's consumer, whether it's B2B, if you're able to architecture, or let's say orchestrate is probably a better word, your SLMs, LLMs, agents, with a great customer experience or user experience to deliver that final outcome at your application layer, that's when you will have groundbreaking applications.
Thank you. Let's get some questions. Can you give the mic?
Hello. Hi, my name is Swati, and I'm solving a chicken and egg problem. I'm actually hiring people for AI teams. So irrespective of the small team that is equivalent to 100 people, my firm focuses on building AI teams. Now, while I see a lot of demand in hiring and roles being open in AI teams, there is a huge gap in expectations. Like I saw a LinkedIn post that says, I want 5 years of experience in DeepSeek, which is, which is funny. But what I want to understand is, as companies, as hiring managers or leaders building teams to enable AI, what is it that companies from their end are doing to upskill talent? Now, I know there are like several courses online. Everybody's selling as much as possible that you become an AI expert in these many weeks or months. But even though everything is converging to generative and not very specific skill sets, companies, what initiatives are you taking to upskill your existing team, or to see that, okay, let me hire people who can grow into an AI expert inside the team?
Maybe Goda, you should take this.
Yeah, I think there are two parts we are talking about here is in upskilling. One kind of upskilling is to be able to build with AI for your end customers. The second kind of upskilling we are talking about is how do you leverage AI in what you already do to get more effective. These two have two separate kind of paths to take. I think to build with AI, I still believe core engineering is very much necessary. So first principle thinking and core engineering is still required for you to build solutions with AI. So I don't think there are a lot changes. Of course, when we are hiring, I have people want to work only on generative AI and not the other parts associated with it, which does not make a good hire, right? For enabling people to use AI to do your own work better, I think that needs a little bit of, at least what we are trying to enable within Swiggy is sharing what each other are using much more. Building or build by does not matter, like tools where everyone has access to what is within Swiggy, for example, right? To do to be able to ask questions, retrieve faster, do some analysis, etc. So I think that is a journey as an organization we'll need to take. More people use and find it useful is when it becomes sticky. Just by holding a stick and pushing down the line, you have to use AI, it will not happen. Right?
Okay. Can I say something? We don't hire anybody more than 2 years of experience. All our ML engineers are 0 to 3 years in experience. It's not my job as the founder to upskill you. It's your job to use AI to upskill yourself. And if you can't do that, then I'm not going to hire you.
Let's get one more question.
Yeah, hello. So I do agree that POC to going production is the next thing that at an application layer people will try to do, right? But I see the biggest challenge there is quality control. The margin of error that big enterprises has are very less, right? Because they are already very established. So what are some quality controls that you guys have already done at the application layer where you have written complex chain of thought processes, right?
Please take Dr. Rohini.
So, look, I think as an enterprise, we went completely all in with AI about 2.5 years back. Every single software at Microsoft was rethought as an AI first. Because it was that defining moment for the platform, which means that over a period of time, from perspective of every single step of the software development process has got the quality checks, some of the points I mentioned earlier in terms of safety, AI safety as tools and processes that have gotten baked into the whole platform. Because the platform that our customers use to develop their software is the same platform that Microsoft's first-party products use to build our software, which I'm talking about the Microsoft 365 and the Dynamics. So the ability to really rethink your entire software stack in a way that you're baking in AI-related safety checks as well as quality and security checks across the entire life cycle is the only way you can scale and you can innovate at speed.
Yeah, but do you have like a dashboard which in production shows that, okay, maybe hallucination percentage is like 10% or 20% or something like that? Or is it still
No.
need to innovate there?
So if you are building on Azure and you go to the Azure AI safety portal, you will find a whole bunch of tools which help you do all kinds of checks, hallucination level of groundedness being one of them.
Okay.
So what we are using internally is also exposed for our customers and partners to build with.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I think time is up. Thank you very much for spending time with us. Really appreciate it.